Jack Depp has always occupied a unique place in the public imagination. As the son of Hollywood icon Johnny Depp and French singer and actress Vanessa Paradis, he was born into a world where fame, cameras, and public curiosity were almost impossible to avoid. Yet unlike many children of famous stars, Jack has largely chosen to keep his life away from the spotlight. That decision has made his journey especially intriguing, because behind the famous family name appears to be a young man determined to build an identity and future on his own terms. In recent years, Jack Depp has quietly moved toward a more independent chapter of his life. While the world has watched his father navigate professional challenges, legal battles, and a highly publicized return to filmmaking, Jack has maintained a comparatively private existence. That privacy can itself be seen as an important form of stability. Rather than allowing his family history to define every part of his life, he appears increasingly interested in developing his own creative direction and finding a rhythm that belongs to him. The storms surrounding the Depp family have been impossible to ignore. Johnny Depp's personal and professional struggles became international headlines for years, creating an atmosphere of extraordinary pressure around the family. For Jack, growing up with such attention could hardly have been ordinary, yet he has generally avoided turning those circumstances into a public spectacle. His preference for privacy has allowed him to experience adulthood with considerably more distance. From the constant headlines surrounding his famous father, that sense of independence became particularly noticeable in June 2026, when Jack was photographed on a Paris film set making what was described as his directorial debut. The 24-year-old was seen working with cast and crew, wearing headphones and appearing focused on the production. The images offered a rare glimpse of Jack not simply as Johnny Depp's son, but as a young creative professional attempting to establish his own place in the filmmaking world. The significance of that moment goes beyond a few photographs. For someone who grew up surrounded by one of cinema's most recognizable names, stepping behind the camera can represent a powerful way of creating an individual identity. Jack does not need to reproduce his father's career to demonstrate that he belongs in the creative world. Instead, directing could give him an opportunity to tell stories from his own perspective and develop a professional reputation that is separate from his family's extraordinary legacy. There is also something meaningful about the contrast between Jack's relatively quiet approach and the enormous public attention surrounding his father. Johnny Depp has recently returned to the spotlight in a major way, including a surprise appearance at San Diego Comic-Con in July 2026 to promote his upcoming film, Ebenezer. The appearance represented another highly visible chapter in Johnny's career. While Jack's path has remained much more understated, that difference may actually be one of Jack's greatest strengths. Stability does not necessarily mean having a completely peaceful life. Sometimes it means learning how to remain grounded while circumstances around you are changing. Jack's decision to keep much of his personal world private suggests an understanding that not every important moment needs to become public entertainment. At 24, Jack is also at an age when many people begin seriously defining their professional and personal identities. The expectations attached to his surname could easily become overwhelming. Every career decision can invite comparisons with his father, while every public appearance can generate speculation. But the less visible Jack remains, the more control he retains over how his story develops. His connection to creativity is hardly surprising. Growing up in a family deeply connected to music, cinema, and artistic expression would naturally have exposed him to those worlds from an early age. However, exposure does not automatically create a career. The recent appearance on a Paris film set suggests that Jack is taking concrete steps toward finding his own creative direction, rather than simply benefiting from his family name. For fans of the Depp family, this development can be interpreted as a hopeful chapter. Jack's story is not necessarily about escaping his family's past. Instead, it may be about learning from it without allowing it to dictate his future. The storms that surrounded the family may have taught him the importance of privacy, resilience, and choosing carefully where to place his energy. There is also an emotional dimension to watching a famous family's younger generation grow into adulthood. Fans who remember Jack as a child now see a young man beginning to make professional choices for himself. The transition is significant because childhood fame is something imposed by circumstance, while adulthood offers the opportunity to decide what kind of person one wants to become. Jack has never appeared to be someone desperate for constant attention. That quality may become increasingly valuable as he moves forward. In an entertainment industry where visibility can sometimes seem essential, knowing when to step away from the cameras can be equally powerful. His quiet approach allows his work to become more important than speculation about his private life. The Paris directing appearance therefore feels like more than a rare glimpse of Jack Depp. It represents the possibility of a new beginning. Instead of being viewed only through the lens of his parents, he can gradually be recognized for his own interests, ambitions, and creative decisions. Whether filmmaking ultimately becomes his long-term profession remains his decision, but the willingness to explore that world is already an important step. Perhaps the most compelling part of Jack's journey is that stability does not need to be dramatic. It can look like working quietly on a film set, protecting personal boundaries, learning from difficult experiences, and refusing to let public expectations determine every move. After years in which the Depp family name was repeatedly connected with intense headlines, Jack's quieter chapter feels almost revolutionary in its simplicity. His story is still developing, and there is no need to predict exactly where it will lead. What matters is that Jack appears to be entering adulthood with an opportunity to define himself independently. The storms may have shaped the environment in which he grew up, but they do not have to determine the destination. For Jack Depp, finding personal stability may ultimately mean something very different from the Hollywood version of success. It may mean having creative freedom, maintaining meaningful relationships, protecting his privacy, and discovering satisfaction outside the expectations attached to his surname. His rare public moments suggest a young man who is gradually stepping into his own life, rather than simply living inside someone else's story. And perhaps that is the most encouraging chapter of all. Jack Depp does not need to become another Johnny Depp. He does not need to chase his father's achievements or carry the weight of his family's history forever. He can simply become Jack, a young filmmaker, an individual with his own ambitions, and a person learning how to build a future after growing up amid extraordinary circumstances. After the storms, stability can be quiet. It can be personal. It can be found away from the cameras. For Jack Depp, that quiet stability may now be becoming the foundation for the next chapter of his life. Respected viewers, take care of yourself and yours. I will see you next time. Good luck and have a nice day. Signing off.